All right. So we are going to do a response video here on Idaho 4. Okay, so one of the first videos that we put out when we went full-time true crime was this video here, the drug theory video, right?
Yep.
And we talked about in the beginning of this podcast about Crime Sleuthin' and how Crime Sleuthin' got this week's spotlight, and we respect and appreciate her as a content creator. Well, Crime Sleuthin' and Jules of All Trade did a live with Cara.
A live interview, yeah.
A live interview, interview conversation. They were kind of hanging out, just kind of going through some of those details and just what she knew and or knows about her daughter with some of the things that are going on online, some of the details and things like that. And I wanted to make a video responding to that, okay? And I hopefully everybody out there in the internet understands us by now, that I am not aggressive and I don't come sideways at people. I barely ever have shots fired at content creators. We love and respect and appreciate all content creators, and I even know there's people out there that get mad being called content creators. But let's be real here. Like, everyone putting stuff online as an artist, whether the art is the idea, whether the art is the video, whether the art is the editing, it doesn't matter.
You're creating something.
Correct, absolutely.
Yes.
And we appreciate all of that, literally all of that. So I don't think you'll ever hear me say anything bad about anything. But, okay, in this video, there were a couple statements made around drugs and or drug theory. And I saw the chat popping off. I think people are smart and people are going to come to their own conclusions. And I think a lot of people that have an interest in our channel and a lot of other channels out there have a lot of really good life experience, and everyone's experience is going to be different. But here's the reality of the situation, okay? Drugs impact all of us. Every community in the U.S. They are everywhere, okay? And one of the places that they are the most active in is in college towns and college scenes. Now, this idea where you have Steve Gonsalves coming out and saying, there aren't drugs involved, this isn't a Hollywood story, acting like it's offensive, dude. The substance statistics around college are 90% of college kids, 90% of college kids used mind-altering substances during their college stay, their college trip.
Is that excluding alcohol?
No, that's including alcohol. That's including alcohol.
Wow.
But 90%, and I don't think that detail around the alcohol matters. I don't think that means anything. I bet there's more pot users than alcohol users.
That's a good point.
So, I grew up in Southern California where everyone smoked pot everywhere. It is what it is, okay?
Yeah.
And substances are no different. You have doctors, here's an interesting story, kind of sidestep here. My childhood doctor, I found out later, once I was an adult, was a drug addict. And I loved that doctor. My family loved that doctor. He did really, 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 really great work and was phenomenal with everything. Our go-to, hey, we have a problem. Okay, we'll make room. Come see us, and always took care of everything. Come to find out later, he was using that entire time.
He was a functioning addict.
He was taking his own prescriptions. They give you or back in the day, they used to give you opiate testers. I don't think they do anymore. But he was taking those. He was writing his own prescriptions. He ultimately ended up losing his license years down the road. Taking opiates, taking uppers, taking down. He was taking everything, okay?
Jeez.
So it affects everybody. Drugs are everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Brendan here to interrupt your normal pre-recorded Thought Riot podcast, true crime and criminal culture showing. Now, as I was editing this video, I realized I left out some of the supporting statistics to back some of these things that we were saying. And, I had someone reach out on Reddit who was saying that most of our videos are just opinion, unsubstantiated opinion. However, I would say most of the time that we do a really good job about bringing in statistics to back any of these opinions. And actually, we try really hard to stay away from said opinions. Or if we do have an opinion, we like to back that opinion with some facts. Now, you're watching a video right now that is centered around drugs, drug theory, and some of the social opinions around that and college life, right? So I wanted to jump in here and share some of these super eye-opening statistics around said information, right? Now, what we're going to be going through here is directly from SAMHSA, drug data files, and drugfree.org statistics, completely unopinionated and unaltered statistics. Okay. Now, drugfree.org, it says here, we're on a mission to transform how our nation addresses addiction by empowering families, advancing effective care, and shaping public policy on changing culture, which that's phenomenal. So I'm super stoked to be able to show you some of their statistics. It sounds like they're on a really good mission here to help people in general. Now, every year, SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, sponsors a national survey on drug use and health. They interview teenagers and young adults in high school and college to get a clear picture of the latest drug abuse in college student statistics and overall trends of drug and alcohol abuse among the nation's youth. The survey examines the percentage rates of the most commonly used drugs by college students, including non-medical use of prescription drugs, to make sure that you have a clear picture of the temptations your student may be facing at his or her university. Here are some of the key results from the latest survey available from SAMHSA. Incredible. If you have any questions, if you want to check up on our information to see if what we're saying is true, I highly suggest you reach out to any of these drugdatafiles.com, drugfree.org, samhsa.com, and they have all the information on there. Now, I will say the SAMHSA statistics usually take a couple years to post because their files are like 130 pages. It is a super in-depth look at some of these statistics. They give you the mathematical calculations behind them and everything in between. So absolutely incredible. Shout out to those guys. If you're somebody who works with these companies, thank you so much. It is incredible having companies out there that are helping people realize that this is not a Hollywood story, okay? Let's start with high school. 75% of high school students have tried addictive substances such as nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine. 46% use addictive substances regularly, and 12% meet the clinical criteria for addiction. Now, 90% of Americans who meet the clinical criteria for addiction started using substances before the age of 18. 1 in 4 Americans who began using substances before the age of 18 have addiction. 1 in 4, 25%, compared to 1 in 25 who began at age 21 or older. Now, we move into the college statistics, okay? National survey data indicate that over 90% of full-time college students have consumed alcohol, tobacco, or illicit drugs in their college years. Over 90%, okay? Insane. National survey data indicate that over 60% of full-time college students have consumed alcohol, and a staggering 39% report engaging in binge drinking, consuming 5 or more drinks over the past month. Annual prevalence of non-medical use of Adderall in college students is over 10%, 10.9%. Then for unmatched use, not enrolled in college. So what they're saying is college students actually have a higher likelihood of using these uppers than somebody who's not in college. Again, interesting. A longitudinal study of 1,253 college students found that more than 20% were exposed to opportunities for cocaine use in the past year. 20% cocaine use in the past year. That is what, 1 in 5 people? 1 in 5 people. So according to National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 20% of full-time students reported using marijuana in just the past month, okay? So keep this in mind here, you guys. Okay, all right, if we're talking about 6 people in a house that night at 1122, 90% would equal to 5 out of 6 people were and or have used substances within the past college stay, okay? Now, that's only for the likelihood of who would have or could have used. It doesn't go into the likelihood of them using and being around sorority and fraternity life. So another interesting stat here around SAMHSA, and this goes into an article they have posted, A Day in the Life of College Students aged 18 to 22 Substance Use Facts. More than 1/3 of full-time college students age 18 to 22 engaged in binge drinking in the past month alone. 1 in 5 used an illicit drug in the past month, and 1 in 4 students have sold or have passed hands from one person to another as a drug dealer. Okay, that's the easiest way I can put it. I understand that there's some gray area around that. I get it. I understand that they don't necessarily have to be this dude on the corner that, hey, you need a dime sack. You know what I mean? I understand that they could just be, oh yeah, I'll get that to so and so. Bam, but 1 in 4 college students are selling drugs in some way, shape, or form, according to these national statistics around SAMHSA. Not opinion, guys. Now, isn't that interesting? One more interesting fact, and I'll let you get back to your normal broadcast here. So, assault is a significant problem on college campuses. Alcohol and other drug use is a strong predictor of an increased risk of committing and experiencing assault among college students. Unfortunately, listen to this. Unfortunately, being involved in Greek life, binge drinking, and drug use are added risk factors for experiencing an assault in college. What? Wild. Members of fraternities and sororities have some of the highest rates of substance abuse on college campuses. Compared with non-members, fraternity and sorority members are more likely to use alcohol and other illegal drugs, as well as binge drink more frequently and smoke cigarettes more frequently than other college students. Members also suffer from more negative consequences from substance abuse compared with non-members, including a higher prevalence of driving under the influence, being physically injuring somebody else, experiencing memory loss, and having unprotected sex. Males who live in fraternity houses during college not only have a heightened risk of binge drinking, but are also at a higher risk of an alcohol or drug use dependence later in life. 45% reported symptoms that meet this criteria. Living in a fraternity or sorority house is also associated with the higher prevalence of cigarette smoking. Students who engage in substance use behaviors during high school are more likely to join fraternities and sororities when they enter college. Male students demonstrate a greater increase in alcohol use after pledging into fraternities compared to non-members. Male students demonstrate a greater risk in illegal drug use after pledging into fraternities compared to non-members. Members who are more actively involved or who have taken leadership positions are also more likely to hold positive thoughts towards alcohol use and illegal drug use, including the facilitation of bonding between brothers, having fun, and enhancing sexual appeal. Not surprisingly, students who later disaffiliate with Greek life demonstrate a decrease in heavy drinking and drug use related consequences. Boom. It is not a Hollywood story in any way, shape, or form.
And if he meant cartels are a Hollywood story, like that they kill people or that gangs kill people that deal drugs, that is not a Hollywood story either.
Yeah, it's not. I just want to be careful bringing up that word cartel, though, because I think a lot of people watched our drug theory video and thought we were trying to say a cartel, a drug cartel that has so much money, they put it on an 18-wheel truck to weigh it, came and targeted 4 college students. Get out of here. That is not what we were suggesting whatsoever. When we brought up cartel details, we were talking about cartel because other crime follows cartel, not there's cartel involvement in that house or even in that city. It's that gangs follow where cartel go.
Right.
Mid-level users and criminals follow where those gangs go that follow cartels.
Because the cartel supplies everybody.
Correct.
They are the supply chain.
Absolutely.
They are the supply chain. That is the only reason they are important.
Absolutely.
I do not believe this was a cartel hit. And no, that's not what we meant at all.
No.
I'm just saying that whole trade, that whole black market, that whole business is very real. It's not a Hollywood story whatsoever.
It is not. Growing up in Southern California, you know how many times I woke up with the news saying, hey, on the 10 freeway, we have 4 human heads that have been thrown out of a driving car. I promise you, it's not Hollywood.
Monterey, it was a woman hanging from a bridge with a sign on her.
Yep, absolutely. But, okay, now going into this video, and again, I feel like I prefaced it enough here that I'm not coming sideways at Xana's mother, Cara. And if Cara, if you're watching, please reach out to us here because there are questions. I didn't want to try to hop on there or steal any shine from what they had going on. They had a specific direction they wanted to go. But look, it's wrong to think that there couldn't be drug involvement in this crime. I think that if anyone out there is looking at this crime and saying that there is no way there could be drugs involved, I have a 90% statistic that says otherwise, okay?
Yeah.
So let's just play fair here and cut that in half, okay? You have a house that had 6 people there. 45% of people are involved with drugs in some way. If I cut that 90% statistic in half, that would still leave 2.5 people that would be involved in drugs in that house. So it's not out there.
So
now
it's more unlikely that there
is no drugs there. Yes,
right.
Correct. And I brought evidence with me too, and I'll put them up on the screen as we're going through it here. But there was a recent bust here in A recent bust in 2020 that focused specifically on fraternities and sororities. It involved 4 colleges. It involved multiple fraternities, and these fraternities were moving drugs through these colleges. Now, interesting that you also have people in that house that were part of fraternities, part of sororities, right? The drug theory is a video that we put out, and just because we put out a theory doesn't necessarily mean we believe that, but it means that it needs to be talked about, because everything needs to be talked about. Now, we also put out the 4chan theory recently as well. And you know what's interesting that I think are going over people's heads is supposedly that fight that happened at Sigma Chi was such a big deal because they were calling that guy out for using illegal drugs. Steroids are illegal drugs.
Yeah.
Even in that theory, it's there. So when Cara came out on there and tried to make it seem like, look, these were good kids, okay? They had jobs. They were going to school.
They were good kids.
They weren't dealing out of that house. Look, it's more unlikely there wasn't active drug involvement going on in that house than there was.
I want to say something that's personal experience real quick, okay? I used to buy the best pot from an Ivy League student, okay? An Ivy League student who was a really good kid. Is who I used to go buy some of the best pot from. Literally Ivy League.
Yep, I know.
So just no. And it wasn't only pot sometimes, too.
Yep.
So, come on.
Yep.
He was a really good kid.
I think that somebody could have been involved in dealing in that house, and that doesn't mean they're a bad kid.
Dude,
we don't have any bias. Now, I will be fair in this regard that America hates drug addicts. They absolutely despise them. In general, America hates drug addicts, and that is a major problem.
It's a flaw.
And it is a major problem that for us that we see that because drug addiction is nothing to be hated, okay? Drug addiction just happens to be an addiction which most people are affected by addictions. This one, it just has brought so much harm to communities that people have a bad taste in their mouth around it. And addiction itself is a mental health issue.
These people need help.
It's an illness, okay? And somebody that's addicted to drugs is not any less than any other person out there.
No.
But for Cara to come out and make it seem like that's not possible, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. It's not possible. It shouldn't be considered. That is not possible that a drug aspect should not be looked into in this crime. 90% stat that says otherwise. Now, I think one of the big things that was missed in our drug theory video, and again, these are public records, you guys, public records. So, were the charges, right? The parents' charges, and wondering if there could be some kind of connection because of flipping or something like that. You know, Cara, and again, I have my own past, you guys. I'm not putting Cara down here.
No.
I have my own past. I just choose to put some of that information behind a paywall. But so we had 2 felonies that happened earlier in the year, right? That we talked about on the drug theory video, which would have put Cara at the 3 felony mark, which makes you applicable to be put away for life if that's what is decided in court. Both of these charges were reduced, and there was also Corey Hadrock 2 that we talked about in that video that actually had 3 charges here, 2 felonies and a misdemeanor, and both of theirs in mid-September. One was September 7th, one was September 13th. Those charges were reduced due to a plea deal that you can see online. You can search it and find it yourself online, right? Well, that same week that the crime happened, those charges that were taken off were reapplied. They were reapplied after taking them off?
Right.
That is the big question there. So, you know, if there's some way out there that Cara wants to explain this, like, how did that happen? Because to me and my experience, that feels like red flag. I have questions, you know what I mean? Especially when you have someone that's a family member that unfortunately was ended.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean we believe that is what happened. It's just a question.
Just a question.
Just a question.
Yep.
We're not implying anything that we believe any certain thing. It's just a red flag.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even if there was, I look at this situation, and even if there was some reason, some connection like that, dude, there would be no fault on her. There'd be no fault on her.
No.
Murderers are murderers, and there is no person out there that would ever be to blame for what somebody would conduct against another person in that way, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's a heinous act, and the reason why we even talk about these theories, the drug theory, the 4chan theory, any of these theories, is because we care about it, because we see an injustice, because we see a problem in our society, because we see a crime with 4 people that should have never, ever, ever, ever happened, and the only way to get some sort of justice from this is to be able to find the right person and hold them accountable, or persons, and hold them accountable. So, I'm curious what you guys think, though, and I wanted to highlight those charges because I feel like a lot of people missed that in our drug theory video. They didn't make the connection that all those felonies were dropped. They were taken off, but then they were reapplied. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
When looking at that possibility.
Yeah, it's just like there's other people who we know for a fact, dealing in that area who had their charges dropped. But guess what? They weren't ever reapplied.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that happens why? Well, you tell me. Why would somebody's charges from a pretty bad crime,
felony charges,
be removed?
Yeah, there were a lot of people who responded in the comments saying, well, this happens every day. This happens. I mean, it doesn't just happen every day. Normally, there is some sort of reasons behind it with conditions, or if you're a first-time offender, you can go to drug court, drug counseling, a drug rehab. But all those options expire the more it happens. Next time, they will not be so lenient. Next time, even less likely they're going to be lenient. Next time, you better get on your knees and start praying. Type of lenient. You know what I mean? And when 4 people are ended, we're going to ask every question because we care.
Yeah.
Because it matters to us. And, you know, we might be doing a secondary video on this from another drug theory point of view. But we want to know what you think here.
Yep.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.